Oh, welcome back, my friends. Today we're going to be playing with some Winchester 244 ball powder with the 9mm. I've got 11 different bullets picked out. We're going to be doing 10 shots with each of them. I'm going to be collecting chronograph data and just kind of doing some loose offhand shooting for sort of a general accuracy test. So there's not a whole lot to it. I just went through my stash and picked out pretty much everything I could find that would work in my 9mm. And we're using some CCI 500s and of course the 244. So I think this is a pretty new powder. It might be maybe 5 years old. I think it came out in 2018 or something like that, based on what I could find on the interwebs. But anyways, I think it's basically using the CFE technology that Hodgdon has for their CFE pistol, but it's more along the burn rate of their 231 powder from Winchester. So it's got the copper fouling reducer there, clean burning and precise metering. Here we have a close-up on our powder. You can see it is a very fine ball powder. Should flow very nicely through any of your powder measures. It'll probably leak through your Lee auto drum, but yeah, should work very nicely. And we'll just do a tour of our projectiles real quick. This is the 115 grain, looks like a round nose from Black Bullets International. Our second projectile is going to be the 115 grain round nose from Berries. It's just a copper plated bullet, and that'll be our second test. Third, here we have a 124 grain truncated cone with the slick side. Next up is the 356-634 sent in by none other than CW Longshot, and these are going to come in at right around 133 grains. Here we have a classic. It's just a 124 grain full metal jacket. This one here is our M&P 359-125 with the deep hollow point insert. You can see my dummy round. The hollow point actually kind of got squished by the current seating die, so I'm going to have to maybe play around with that, or just to get velocity, I'll go ahead and run with that. But later on, if I make a load for this, we're going to definitely have to find a seating stem that matches. Anyways, these are coming in right around 131 grains. Here we have a 127 grain NOE hollow point. This was sent in by Brews and Bullets. And yeah, these are 127 grains at 356. This was my very first bullet mold, the Lee 358-125. I size them down to 356, and you can run them in 9mm just as well as your 38 Special or 357 Magnum. And this one weighs 132 grains. Next, we have another go-to from Lee. This is a 356-125-2R, I believe. Pretty much slick-sided. It's got one little groove there for a lube if you need, but it works very well. It feeds great. Another favorite here on the channel. And these weigh 132 grains. This is one of our last ones. This is the M&P 359-125 again, but this is the flat nose insert there. These weigh 143 grains. And lastly, we have a 147 grain Black Bullets International slick-sided, and that'll be the heaviest that we're going to be testing today. Now that we've taken a look at our powder and our projectiles, we're going to be using the CCI 500 small pistol primers. And if we're doing 10 shots with 11 different bullets, that's 110 shots. So we're going to be doing it on our Dillon today, which you can use as a turret. You don't have to load all 4 stations at once, and that's what I'm going to do with it today. So here we are at the Dillon 550. Yeah, it's a progressive press, but you can also use it as a turret. It doesn't automatically index, so you can leave it at one stage and move it to the next when you need to. So I can size, I can, instead of dumping powder, I'm just gonna have it bail out our mouth, and then I'm gonna be dumping our powder, and then I'll be dumping the powder from my RCBS Uniflow. I just have it clamped on here with my rock chucker at the moment, but I've got it set to throw right at the minimum charge I'm going to be using, and then we're going to come over here and trickle up to the rest of the charges. And after we're done with our powder, we're back over here at the Dillon with our RCBS seating die, and finally the Lee factory crimp die that has the carbide insert, so it'll smooth out anything in the body, and then finally give it a nice taper grip at the end. So I'll just do a few here for you. Right now I have it set up for my 115 grain. Here we're just running one case at a time, so make sure we're nice and primed. And yep, we're nice and flush there. These are Winchester 19 head stamps, and I've got all of them matching, so that should be one less variable to worry about here. Move to the second stage here, and I don't have any powder up here, remember, so I'm just going to come up and flare out our mouth, and that's going to allow us to get our bullet to seat more easily, as well as not scrape off any of our coatings or the jackets or any of that stuff. So it is required on all pistol cartridges, on all straight wall cartridges at least, and usually 100% required with cast lead, even if you're in a rifle. Anyways, it comes down here. We are now properly flared, and I've got that locator button taken out so I can come over and charge my case. Okay, we have our case charged with our powder, and we'll just get our bullets seated there and do our best to make sure it's somewhat centered and concentric, but if not, our die will usually do a pretty good job of helping, but it's always best to aid it as well as you can. Now that we're seated to depth, you can see we still have that bell on the case mouth. Final step is to crimp and take that out, and then this load will be ready to rock and roll. So we just insert our case again and then turn to the final stage. And we have our first loaded round ready to go, and we easily pass the plunk test there. So I've got 9 more of these to do, and then 10 more bullets with 10 shots each after that. So let's get cranking on these. I'll let you know if we have any problems during the loading with any of the projectiles, but other than that, we'll get out to the range here, see if we can shoot a group, and see what the chronograph will tell us about this sort of stuff. Okay folks, and we are back from the range, and when I said hopefully we can go and shoot a group, yeah, we shot a group today. So here's a quick look at the target, and there we go. Yeah, that's our target. Very nice. Yeah, actually, so it was really windy. I'm new to the range. I didn't know I had to bring my own little staple gun, so I had a couple thumbtacks that I was able to not actually use because they didn't work, and my targets kept blowing off of the backstop, and this one was still stuck there from whoever left it with the staples. And so you'll see a couple of 22 holes kind of scattered about. Ignore those, but this is my 50 plus shots today, I guess, with 9mm. So, oh, we're upside down. Ha! So yeah, we weren't really shooting for groups today, really, per se. I was just trying to collect some velocity data and check for functioning and all that fun stuff. But when we have a calmer day and I actually bring the correct equipment to the range and I can test and shoot for a group, we'll go back and do that. So I saved half of them today, so I only shot 5 out of the 10 rounds from each of the ones that we have loaded. So we can go back and shoot groups on that later. But anyways, just a quick review on the velocities. All right, so when we were at the range, I went and shot in order of lightest bullet up to our heaviest bullet, and that made us start with the 115 grain Berries plated bullet. We used 4.4 grains of the Winchester 244, and no immediate signs of danger, still quite rounded primers. A little bit of cratering there, but if you've seen any other videos with my P95 that I use quite often, that seems to be a characteristic of pretty much a medium load up to anything from there. So still flat primers. Anyways, our 5-shot average over the chronograph, 1073, extreme spread of 28, and standard deviation of 11. We had full function and lockback on the last round there. Second up was our 115 grain Black Bullets International. This was our highest velocity of the day. Whoopie-doo, nothing special. 1121, extreme spread of 12, and standard deviation of 4. Wow, very nice. I guess if you actually match your brass, you can get some numbers there if that matters to you. Again, no immediate signs of pressure with the same powder charge and same bullet weight with a different bullet. Of course, they're seated at different depths, but this one actually looks less cratered, and we achieved a higher velocity. So take that for what you will. But again, we had full function, and we can still move up a little bit in charge if we want to. But we're going to shoot those 5 for a group and see if we need to play with it from there. Our third test was a 124 grain full metal jacket. Again, full function on this one, no pressure signs. No problem feeding from the magazine, none of that stuff. Pretty low velocity though at 4 grains, 995 average, 23 spread, and 8 deviation there. Again, full function, and we can of course move up by a couple tenths if we want to keep playing around with that one. Fourth, we have a 124 grain Blue Bullet. It's a truncated cone design. Perfect for feeding, excellent function. And again, no signs of pressure on all pieces of the brass. This one with 4 grains compared to the full metal jacket gave us almost 50 feet per second more. So an average of 1047, 31, and 11 there on the spread and deviation. So pretty tight numbers. And again, full function, no issues at all. Our 5th test was the 127 grain NOE hollow point. 4 grains again of the 244, average of 1040, extreme spread 41, and standard deviation of 15. Full function, no issues at all. Although I think I tried to put it into the Hellcat barrel that I didn't have earlier to plunk it in, and this one always has a little bit of trouble unless it's seated a little bit deeper. But it works just fine in the P95, and so it functioned just fine for me today. Number 6, with 4.1 grains of powder, the 131 grain M&P mold. Obviously, I need to get a better fitted seated stem for that. But anyways, 1016 average, 60 on the spread, and 20 for the deviation. I think one of them was really low. I think it was like 950 or something. So that was probably an error on my fault while I was loading it. So if we want to test this again, I bet the next 5 we test would be a little more consistent, because this was our biggest spread throughout the day, and it actually felt like it had less recoil, and I'm sure if I was actually looking at the group, it would have been way off from the other 4. Anyways, we still got function at 4.1 grains. Good to go. On to the next. Next up, the 356 125 2R, maybe 1R, I don't know. Nice round nose bullet, feeds perfectly in your 9mm. The same signs of pressure throughout the test so far. Minor cratering, round primers, so on and so forth. You can see with 4.2 grains, we only had an average of 999, extreme spread 28, and deviation of 10. Full function once again, lockback, all that fun stuff, and room to move up as well, as we didn't see pressure and we were also below the book maximum. And moving right along, this is the 358 125 flat nose. It's actually for 38 357, and I actually left this one sized at 358. So you can see, even though it's actually a really short bullet, With only 4 grains, we were higher than an equally weighted bullet with a higher charge. So 1035, 30 on the spread, and 12 on the deviation. And of course, full function. This is one of my go-to bullets. It's great to load up a ton of them, and you can use them in 38 Special, 357, the lever guns, of course, 9mm, plenty of options, and it's a great bullet to have a mold for. Coming up near the end here, this was the Lyman 356-634. Again, standard signs on the primer that we've seen throughout, nothing spectacular. We had decent numbers here, 1067 average, 21 on the extreme spread, and deviation of 8 there. Of course, we had full function, and I don't know if it was because the wind had slowed down for a minute, but this one seemed a little smoky compared to the others, but I think it was just a calm in the wind, and that was the only one I actually noticed. So, no complaints. More room to move up in the charge, of course, by a couple tenths if we want to. But we'll see how it groups and circle back if we need to. Number 10 was the MP 359125. This is the solid flat nose there. And this one is the only one that did not function. We had failure to eject and failure to feed. It was very weak, and I had to rack my slide and redo the whole magazine 3 times while testing this one. And we can see my gun doesn't crater every single time. So if you barely have anything going on, no crater at all, super round primer. And here with only 3.3 grains, we can go up to 3.6, I believe. Velocity average 859, extreme spread of 34, and standard deviation of 14. And again, this is the only one of the day that did not function for us. And a while back, I was testing this bullet in the same weight bullet, but with 700X, and I think it was actually the same exact charge weight. It gave me like 862 or something, really close to this. So that's interesting to note that 700X is a way faster burning powder, but giving us the same velocity here as a somewhat slower powder. Not a really slow pistol powder, but somewhat slower burning pistol powder. Anyways, that was just interesting to me. But moving on to the last one here. Our last one is the 147 grain Black Bullet International. I used 1/10 lower than the last bullet, but this one actually functioned with a heavier bullet. I think it's because it's seated further down into the case, a little bit less capacity, thus more pressure. So average of 856, extreme spread of 20, and standard deviation of 7. And again, it did function. So that is super exciting, right? Whoopee. So anyways, first impressions about Wind Clean. It is actually quite clean burning. And this was a pretty low charge, low pressure, but we still had a full seal and a pretty clean burn there on our nickel cases, you can tell. And it's hard to see, but even the inside is pretty clean compared to some other really sooty, dirty powders you might have seen. And apparently if I was shooting jacketed stuff all day, it's got a copper fouling eraser, sort of fun thing like the CFE pistol does as well. All in all though, I'm quite enjoying Winchester 244 for the most part. When I throw it on the progressive there, it should flow a lot better than say Unique or another flake style powder, because this is a ball powder and it should work pretty well. Anyways, that's gonna do it for today. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already and you like this sort of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also come support the channel over on patreon.com/dummyround. Anyways, we will see you in the next video. Have a good one.